sold your house to teach you a lesson about respect, my stepmother sneered over the phone. The new owners move in next week. I smiled, remembering the secret meeting with my late father's lawyer. Good luck with that, I replied. She had no idea what was coming. Update 4. The remainder of my estate, Mr. Harrison continued, including all real property, financial accounts, investments and business interests, I leave to my wife, Brendan Campbell Reynolds. The words hit me like physical blows. The house, my childhood home, my grandparents' legacy, the place my father had promised would someday be mine to care for, was now Brenda's, along with everything else that defined my father's life and work. How could he do this? After all his mysterious comments about making things right, after all his hints about arrangements and instructions to meet with Harrison, I must have made some small sound of distress, because Aunt Carol reached over and gripped my hand tightly. Are there any questions? Mr. Harrison asked, looking directly at me with an unreadable expression. Brenda's attorney spoke up. Everything seems quite straightforward. My client is satisfied with the terms. I bet she was. In the space of 10 minutes, Brenda had gone from a moderately successful real estate agent to a multimillionaire with significant property holdings. Madison, Mr. Harrison prompted. Any questions? I wanted to scream, to demand explanations, to ask how my father could have betrayed not just me, but the generations of Reynolds who had preserved our family home. Instead, I managed a stiff no questions. Very well, Mr. Harrison said. There are papers to sign regarding the transfer of assets. Brenda, my assistant has those ready in the next room. Madison, if you could stay behind for a moment. There are some details regarding your father's personal effects that we need to discuss. Brenda, triumphant, take all the time you need to discuss knickknacks. She said, I have more pressing matters to attend to, like deciding what color to paint the living room. I'm thinking white to brighten up all that dreary woodwork. She swept out with her attorney, leaving me stunned and shaking with both grief and anger. As soon as the door closed behind them, Mr. Harrison's formal demeanor changed. He quickly crossed to a sideboard, poured a glass of water, and brought it to me. Drink this, he instructed gently, and then listened very carefully. All is not as it appears, Madison. I took the water automatically, my mind still reeling. What do you mean? She got everything. The house, the money, everything he worked for. Not exactly, he said, his voice lowered conspiratorially. He reached into an inner pocket of his suit jacket and withdrew a small envelope. Your father asked me to give you this privately after the formal reading, and he asked me to tell you that you must meet me tomorrow, at 10 a.m., at the Blackbird Cafe on Charles Street. Come alone, tell no one. I took the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a note in my father's handwriting. Madison, what you heard today is not the full story. Harrison will explain everything tomorrow. Trust him completely. Remember what I told you. Things aren't always what they seem. I've made arrangements. I love you more than anything. Dad. I looked up at Mr. Harrison, confused hope beginning to replace my despair. I don't understand. You will, he promised, tomorrow. For now, play along. Let Brenda believe she's won. It's what your father wanted. As I drove away from the attorney's office, I glanced in my rearview mirror, at the house that had been my home. The house I thought I'd never see again except as a visitor at Brenda's mercy. I watched her go inside, already on her phone, likely sharing the news of her windfall with friends. Later that evening, as I sat in Aunt Carol's guest room trying to make sense of the day's events, I received a text from a high school friend, who still lived in the neighborhood. Just drove by your house. There's a coming soon sign from Brenda's real estate company in the front yard. Is your dad selling? My dad wasn't selling. My dad was gone. And Brenda wasn't wasting any time claiming her prize and turning it into cash. The Blackbird Cafe was a small, unassuming establishment tucked between a bookstore and a florist on Charles Street. It was the kind of place locals treasured and tourists overlooked, with mismatched furniture, and the best scones in Boston. Dad and I used to come here on Saturday mornings when I was in high school. I arrived 15 minutes early, too anxious to wait any longer at Aunt Carol's. I chose a table in the back corner, positioned so I could see both the entrance and the emergency exit, a habit from my years living in San Francisco. At precisely 10, Mr. Harrison appeared, carrying a weathered leather briefcase that looked like it had accompanied him through decades of legal practice. He ordered coffee for both of us, before sitting down across from me. Thank you for coming, Madison, he said, his formal tone contrasting with the casual setting. What I'm about to share with you was planned meticulously by your father over the past year. He wanted to protect you, but he needed to protect himself as well. At least until the end. Protect himself from Brenda. I said, not as a question. Harrison nodded. Your father realized too late, I'm afraid, the true nature of his second marriage. By the time he understood what Brenda was, he was already trapped in ways that made a simple divorce complicated. What do you mean complicated? Dad had all the money, all the power in that relationship. Harrison smiled sadly. Power isn't always about money, Madison. Brenda had gathered quite a collection of compromising information on your father. Business decisions that, taken out of context, could have been portrayed as unethical. Private struggles after your mother's death, that could have damaged his reputation. Nothing illegal, nothing truly wrong, but enough that a vindictive ex-wife could have destroyed the firm he'd built over 30 years. Now you can watch the fifth part by pressing share and more.